welcome to the Texas Talks podcast. I'm your host, Brad Swale. Today I have with me Sid Miller. He's an 8th-generation farmer and rancher and the Texas Agriculture Commissioner since 2015. Mr. Miller, how are you?
I'm just dandy. Good to be with you, Brad.
I'm doing well too. Thank you. That's great. I like that. I like that answer a lot. So let's briefly go over sort of your history. How did you become the AG?
Well, I started out as a lawmaker. I served in the Texas House for 12 years, chaired the Agriculture and Livestock Committee. I left the legislature, came home, started running my business, and was recruited to run for Agriculture Commissioner when the office opened up. So
cool.
I was in and was successful. There's 4 or 5 people running. There was a runoff, and we, won the runoff, and so I've been Ag Commissioner now for 10 years.
That's great. And I realize now that I called you AG, but that's AG is short for Agriculture and Agriculture Commissioner, not AG. My apologies. So what is the office? I mean, this is maybe one of those offices that on a regular Joe walking down the street, maybe be a little bit aware that it exists, but might not know exactly what it does. Can you briefly explain that?
I don't know if I can do it briefly, but I'll go as fast as I can. We do everything agriculture, stuff you think about, cows, sows, plows, all that stuff. But we do a whole lot more. I oversee a $7 billion agency. My budget is larger than the budget of 31 governors. So beyond the agriculture stuff, we're the consumer protection agency for the state. I regulate every barcode scanner in the state, every scale, all the pesticides. We have a marketing program, actually a global marketing program. We're kind of the Chamber of Commerce for the state. We run the livestock export facilities, run the nutrition programs. That's my one single largest department. I'm responsible for 5 million school meals each school day, plus stocking area food banks, Meals on Wheels, elderly feeding, nursing homes, summer feeding programs, things like that. I'll oversee rural health care in 191 rural counties across the state. So it's a large operation. We have a lot of moving parts, over 130 statutory functions that we perform for the federal government or the state government.
So, I mean, a lot of that makes sense falling underneath the Agriculture Commissioner's office when you're talking about plows, sows, and what did you say? Cows, plows, and sows? You said it better.
Cows, sows, and plows.
There we go. And that kind of makes sense. But you mentioned stuff like barcodes at grocery stores, scanners. I'm just kind of curious, how does that tie in with the Agriculture Commission?
Well, way back during the inception, before we had computer terminals and all of that, things were sold by the bushel or by the weight. Cattle were sold by the weight, grain by the bushel, pecks, things like that. So someone had to regulate that trade. In the beginning, when Texas was founded, even when the United States was founded, 98% of the people were farmers. I mean, there were no grocery stores. If you either grew it or killed it if you wanted to eat. So someone needed to regulate that. So the obvious person to regulate bushels and pounds would be the Agriculture Department.
Okay, that makes sense. So one of the big issues that I know that you focus on and the department focuses on is conserving water in Texas. It kind of seems like, I mean, I live in Austin and we're constantly in a state of drought. I don't know how they measure that necessarily, but that's what they tell us all the time. And recently, it's been a big issue. They're talking about water conservation at the local level. It's not quite where they want it to be, residentially and commercially. But how is it with agriculture? What's going on with the water? Are we conserving enough? Do we need to conserve more?
Well, there was a study done by the Texas Water Development Board, and large municipalities, from the time they receive the water to they deliver it to their customers, they lose 30%. They don't know where it goes. So that's a big problem. Agriculture, in the same report, stated that we were 93% efficient with the water we use. So we're doing pretty good. We don't waste much. It costs us. One of our largest expenses is the fuel to run the irrigation systems. So when I became commissioner, we didn't have anybody dedicated to looking over water at the agriculture department. So I had to create my own water department. So we work very closely with cities, municipalities. I'm the only statewide official that's promoting rainwater catchment, rainwater harvesting. We spend millions and millions of dollars getting rid of stormwater. We want to turn that into asset, catch the stormwater off these large distribution warehouses and other buildings. It's relatively clean. It doesn't take much effort to clean it up. But even without cleaning it up, we can use it for irrigation, in golfs and city parks, green belts, things like that. We can use it in manufacturing and turn that liability into an asset. We're also working in West Texas with communities and the oil field industry on desal, cleaning up brackish water, getting it clean enough to frack with. It doesn't have to be drinking water quality. So we're moving the needle on water conservation here in Texas.
Yeah, I think the city of Austin is reported to lose 6.9 billion gallons every year to leaks or whatever's going on. And I'm wondering, is there, in your opinion, in the way that you work closely with municipalities, is it a funding issue? Is it a infrastructure? Is it just aging? Is there something more that cities could do? 30% loss is a huge number.
It is, and it's all the above. It's everything. It's probably improper tracking, lack of modern equipment, aged out, water systems, leaky pipes, water meters that are wore out, slip, and don't record accurately. So there's a lot of room for improvement in some of these larger municipalities.
Yeah, for sure. Is there something I know that the recently, I think it was the Texas Tribune reported about the 1944 treaty with Mexico about water, and they're not really honoring their side of the agreement?
Well, it worked good in 1944, and it worked all the way up until the mid 90s. And there's 7 major watersheds in Mexico that run into the Rio Grande. None of those had dams on them. Now they all have dams on them, and there was no farming around those watersheds. And of course, farming, now that they have water impounded, they can irrigate. So the water's not getting into the Rio Grande. It's very misfortunate that the Rio Grande Valley's busting at the seam with new population. So there's human demand on the water. Most recently, our last sugar mill in the state of Texas had to close because the farmers didn't have enough water to grow the sugar cane. So that whole industry is now leaving Texas. It will be no more. And it's because of the water shortage in the Rio Grande. Mexico is not fulfilling the treaty.
So do you play a role in getting them to fulfill their role? Is there anything is that a different department? I don't know, the governor, some negotiation? Do we strong arm them? What do we do?
I think it's everybody's department. The governor plays a role. I'll certainly play a role to advocate for it. It's a federal issue, basically. So there's a bill in Congress by Senator Cruz right now to bring on legislation. I think Senator Cornyn's also in on the same bill to bring Mexico around and get them to pay their delinquent water bill.
Yeah. So let's move to sort of you mentioned it earlier, school lunches and providing, 5 million meals a day to Texas school children. How has that changed over recent years? I don't know. When I was a kid, it was a lot of pizza, and I don't know. There's the old joke of cafeteria lunch and whatever. So how has that changed since you became agriculture commissioner in 2015?
Well, when I came on board 10 years ago, instead of having healthy kids, we had healthy trash cans. It was all going into trash. They wouldn't eat it. It was terrible, absolutely terrible. And so I went around to a lot of cafeterias trying to get my head around this problem. Hungry kids, we don't need that in America. So I would ask these cafeteria managers, I said, how much local products, cooked fresh, are you serving the kids? They say, well, none. I said, why not? Well, we don't have time to go to the farmer's market. We don't know any farmers. We just buy it from Benny, Keith, or Cisco's. They cook it, flash freeze it, and we just thaw it out and put it on that plastic tray. I said, well, that's why it's going in the trash. Tastes terrible. So anyway, to make a long story short, we worked real hard over the years to get local products in our schools. When I started, zero local products fed to our kids. Under my Farm Fresh program, last year, our schools bought $300 million worth of locally produced food products and served our kids. No added dyes, no preservatives, never flash frozen, cooked fresh. And guess what? It didn't go in the trash can. It tastes good and they ate it. So, and we continue to expand that. It's a voluntary program. I don't believe in mandates. So we have over 60% of our schools participating in our Farm Fresh program. And we have Farm Fresh Fridays, how it started out. Just challenge it, at least on Friday, serve something. And meet the farmer on Friday. Have that farmer come in and tell them where that food came from. So it's working quite well. We've become the model for the rest of the nation, actually.
Yeah, and I'm sure meeting the farmer for those kids, I think that would be I didn't meet a whole lot of farmers when I was a kid, and I think that probably would have been pretty cool if I did that. I know in some other locations, certainly not, I don't think in Texas. I think it most recently was maybe New York City where they are advocating, and maybe the old Pace Picante commercial, New York City, right? We don't do that. Um, Advocating for like I don't know, like a day where the kids are served only vegan food or vegetarian food or something like that. And, I got nothing against, people want to do that on their own. That's fine. But in Texas, we're big on beef. We're big on meat, poultry, pork, all sorts of stuff. Um, how are you on that issue?
Well, and that's what inspired me to get fresh products in the schools. There was a school district, Dripping Springs, instituted Meatless Mondays. Oh,
There we
come
go.
on, in Texas, really? You got to be kidding me. And the sad fact about it, some of these kids, the only protein they get is at the school meal. I mean, so to cut that out and not have any protein in the school lunch is just crazy. So we promote it. Those kids need the protein. That's why we even do summer feeding programs. Those kids that need that have a tendency to go hungry when school's out, we continue to feed those through the summer months and make that available.
So is there I don't know, the economy and the culture and the way of life is certainly changing, not only in Texas but everywhere. I think maybe even COVID sort of kicked that off a lot with new technologies being more widely accepted. Right now, we're interviewing over Zoom, and who hasn't used Zoom since the pandemic, right? And of course, you have people like Elon Musk promoting. They have Starlink, high speed internet, basically anywhere you are. And I read some, anecdotally, some people are moving out to the country a little bit more, taking a more rural approach because they have that high speed internet. What do you think the future of agriculture is in Texas? Is it still mostly human driven? Is it, people going out? Are they starting small farms because they do have access to things like Starlink and high speed internet? Where does that go?
Well, kind of just a quick history lesson. When we started out, and I already mentioned that 98% of us were farmers when this country was founded.
Yeah.
That's agriculture 1.0. It was subsistence farming, a mule and 40 acres. Then we came into the agriculture 2.0, which was the age of mechanization, where we had tractors and combines, and one farmer could farm 1,000, 2,000 acres. Well, we're at the point where agriculture 3.0, and that's the technology age, where we're using satellite mapping. We're using drones to fly on our pesticides on our crops. We have automatic milkers. The dairyman doesn't even have to go to the barn anymore. The cows milk themselves. Driverless tractors. So that's kind of where we are today. The age of technology is upon us, and the agriculture industry is widely embracing it, because the biggest detriment or the biggest problem that farmers have, no matter where I go, is labor. They can't get enough labor. So the more that we can automate, use technology, it's on us, and we're taking great advantage of that. So we're at agriculture 3.0 right now.
Yeah, why is it the perception, and I mean probably accurately, I don't think that agriculture is necessarily physically the easiest job out there. and not mentally either. Lots of planning and future foresight and everything like that. Um, why is there such a hard time getting labor for farmers and ranchers?
Well, just harvesting vegetables. I mean, it's hot, it's dirty work. You got your head down, you butt up all day, bent over out in the field. It's just not. It's hard. I mean, it's physically hard on you. And why would you be out in a 105-degree heat with 80% humidity when you could be doing something in an air conditioned building? I mean, it's hard to get people, and you can't really blame them. There's other opportunities out there besides physical labor that's hard on your body.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. I mean, that out there working out in the sun, getting some vitamin D, nice tan. I don't know. It sounds kind of good to me. And you're an eighth generation farmer and rancher. I think that you maybe you even enjoy it at this point. Um, so speaking of sort of the future of agriculture and agriculture 3.0 technology, this has been huge story nationally. Florida has moved to ban lab grown meat. Alabama as well. I think Alabama maybe takes it a step further, if I'm not mistaken. They can't even sell it in Alabama. Uh, where do you fall on that issue?
I think that's a good idea. That whole thing has kind of run its course. People that invested in the lab grown meat or the fake meat, those stocks are worth about 10 to 20 cents on the dollar right now. So it's been totally rejected by the public. I fully expect when our legislature meets again that there will be a bill introduced and possibly passed to follow suit of Alabama and Florida. We'll probably do the exact same thing.
Yeah, and I know that the what is it, the Beyond Beef or whatever stuff like that. There's a lot of marketing tricks that they play. They don't want to how they label it. And it kind of looks like meat when you see it on the grocery store shelf, and you buy it, and maybe you think that, oh, this is going to be a great burger, and then you eat it, and it's not exactly what you planned for. Um, are there moves in Texas to sort of have a truth in labeling? Uh,
No, it doesn't make a lot of sense. It doesn't pass cowboy logic. If you're vegetarian and you don't like meat, why are you trying to make your vegetables taste like meat? Just eat your vegetables. I mean, what, what's the point? If you want something that tastes like meat, eat a ribeye. I mean, come on,
yeah,
it's good. So, yeah, I think it'll run its course. I think the thing that we need to watch out for that's real is insect protein. There's a big push to get people off of meat and move them to insect protein, and that's happening now. It's more widespread than you know.
how so?
Well, it's part of the Biden's 30 by 30 plan. They want to cut our livestock at least in half because of methane emissions, and switch to insect based proteins. So
Yeah.
it's readily available in Europe. You can go to some stores like Whole Foods or Sprouts, and you can actually buy insect protein now off the shelf. It's available.
Yeah, I think I'll. I think if maybe if I wanted to eat an insect, I probably wouldn't go pay for it. I'd just go outside. And I'm not doing a whole lot of that.
Two of our largest agriculture companies, ADM and Tyson, each invested $500 million in producing insect protein. Two different companies, two different startups, over $500 million each.
Yeah. Well, that's that's their money. So what are you going to do? So how do you approach the federal government when they do things like this? The 30 for 30 plan, wanting to cut the or the cow livestock population by 50%. As agriculture commissioner of Texas, you support, and I think quite well support, Texas ranchers and farmers. How do
Sure.
you approach the federal government when they have edicts like that?
Well, two ways. I work very closely with the Trump administration. We got a lot done. We worked hand in hand. I put together an agriculture advisory team, to help guide the president in that area. This administration, I'm spending 40% of my time fighting back or pushing back against the federal overreach. I've sued the federal government 4 times. One case is still pending, but I won the other 3. So, we fight back where we can. We pick our battles that need to be fought, and we fight for the American farmer and rancher every day.
Yeah. Are you concerned about, I don't know, you mentioned Tyson and the other company investing $500 million in insect protein. There's a lot of other, uh, they're trying to do things to our meat that, maybe a lot of people don't really know about. There was, of course, the mRNA vaccine for COVID, which was, love it or hate it, whatever. There's a lot of mixed feelings out there about that for people. But it seems like I read stories that they're trying to push that into, the agriculture industry as well. And I think a lot of people are right to sort of question, what does that do to the meat when we consume it? Is it still there? Are we getting that through them? I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Well, it's like this. We don't need any new mRNA vaccines for our cattle or any of our livestock. We have every vaccine we need. I've been vaccinating my livestock for COVID, the last 20 or 30 years. I mean, all the other diseases we have good vaccines. They're real vaccines too. They're not mRNA vaccines. So I've been following that, researching it real close, trying to figure out, what's real and what's not. The problem is the research that I read, I don't trust it. I mean, we relied so much about the COVID vaccines. One shot will make you immune. Well, won't quite make you immune. You need a booster. Yeah. Well, you can't spread it if you take the. But yeah, you can spread it. All that stuff. You never. And so what research I read on these animal vaccines, I'm pretty skeptical about it. I can't figure out why we need it. I mean, we've got all the real vaccines that we need. So there's really no need to change. It doesn't improve anything. If you're immune, you're immune. You can't be, immune twice, I guess. I don't know what the point would be.
Yeah, and I read a story, and I don't know how true it is. It seems like real science fiction. They're trying to come up with a vaccine to eliminate the methane, as you mentioned before, from cow burps and cow farts. I don't know how that works. It sounds kind of crazy, but it's another push against, it's the global warming, climate change, environmental push to make cows, I don't know, more environmentally friendly somehow. How do you look at the environmental concerns with Texas agriculture and farming?
Well, I think it's blown out of proportion. I don't think the methane that comes from livestock's as big a problem as they try to make it out to be. The solution, if you want to, reduce methane from livestock, is not getting rid of the livestock. Is the solution would be to develop a feed additive that reduces the gas. We take antacid pills to reduce our gas. So sure. There's some things like that. There's some feed additives coming out shortly, probably within the next few months. I know Elanco has one that reduces methane about 50%. So I think that's the way to go, is to develop feed additives that reduce the amount of methane that's produced.
Yeah.
And then everybody wins.
Yeah, I think it was is it kelp? Sea kelp? Does that do it? Is that right?
I'm not sure. I think that might be one of the ingredients. But
yeah. So let me ask you a tough question. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you think that Texas beef is the best in the world?
I just got back from spending a week in Africa, North Africa, on a trade mission, selling beef for one thing, and cotton and citrus and a lot of biotech products. So let me just tell you, there's no doubt about it. America has the best beef, and the best beef in America comes from Texas. We've got twice as many cattle as the second largest state in beef production. We have the largest amount of feedlots. We know what we're doing. It's a big business here in Texas. We have over 12 million head of cattle. The next closest state has about 6. So yes, the answer is yes. Texas has the best beef.
That's great. So you're traveling to North Africa trying to promote it and get open up markets. I want to know how that's going, and also, truth in labeling. We get beef from other places, South America, Brazil, wherever. And do people know that? Do they know what they're buying?
Well, everything that comes from food stuff that comes from out of the United States is required to have a label product of, Mexico or Chile or
Yeah.
Venezuela, except two products are exempt from that: beef and pork. It doesn't make any sense. I guess the beef and pork lobbyists got that through. So I've been working with Chairman G.T. Thompson to fix that in the Farm Bill. I've worked with Congressman, Ronnie Jackson, others to get that fixed, because that's just not truth in labeling. I mean, it's just you can bring meat in from outside the United States, and as long as you repackage it and put a new label on it, it can say product of USA, even though it's ground beef from Brazil or Australia or New Zealand or somewhere.
Yeah.
That's lying to the American people, and we need to stop.
Yeah, and then it doesn't taste quite as good, I think. So, and that trip to North Africa, I'm sure you've done many of those. Is Texas beef in pretty high demand? I think that it would be. We get a perception of being cattle ranchers and everything like that across the world. I think people would be excited about that.
No, people over there are just hungry. They only grow about 25% of their own food. So there is a market, for the high end cuts. Shipping that distance, it was a 30-hour return flight for me. It takes it's a big shipping problem. But we're working on that. And one thing we can do is work with them on how to feed the animals they have, how to improve the genetics. We can sell them, breeding stock, semen, embryos, and we can help them, pull themselves up.
Well, that's great.
And help our American ranchers at the same time.
Absolutely. Well, Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller, I want to be respectful of your time. I really appreciate you coming on. Is there a website that people can find out more?
Sure, texasagriculture.gov. Texasagriculture.gov, or my personal Facebook page is Miller for Texas. We put a lot of information out there. My website is sidmiller.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Miller. I really appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you. God bless.